Welcome to Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God.
A podcast sponsored by Piedmont Road Church of Christ and Ministry League.
We're here to discuss Bible topics just as if we're asking Jesus himself. I am Paul Sperlin.
And I am Les Sandifer. We hope you will enjoy our relaxed Bible-based discussions.
Thanks for joining us as we think about and talk about all those things we've asked Jesus over a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Woohoo!
Welcome
to the show.
Yes, Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to Piedmont Road, lifeinchrist.com, and Ministry League at ministryleague.com. And this is the show, and we're excited to bring you back into the studio. It has been 1 week, and we're back again.
Back again, live. Very exciting stuff, talking about marriage, continuing to talk about the subject of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
This week we're going to get into fun stuff.
Do you know what you just did?
What did I do?
You said fun stuff.
Oh, like the rest of it's not
like,
fun?
No, like fund stuff.
Oh, fund.
Yeah.
Fund.
As in cha-ching.
Money.
As in, it's time to get a paycheck. Time to do stuff. Do stuff with that paycheck.
Yes.
So,
Paul,
yes.
I have a question for you.
What is your question?
What is one of the leading causes of marriages having problems and ultimately failing?
Finances.
Okay.
The research has been done.
And that's
why I almost said something funny like have never met, but that's not a thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Finances definitely is the top reason for divorce. And really that's what all these the questions, and that's really the I can't talk. The essence of this show, this season of Les and Paul is about questions you've had. One question was about, marriage, divorce, and remarriage and things like that. And so what we thought we'd do is spend a little time talking about that. And so we're going to spend a few weeks, and we already have, and we will continuously do that. And so we continue this week in talking about some of those things that do kind of hurt the marriage. And so finances seems to be rank number one.
Yep. It is one of those subject matters that, well, first of all, we're not, I guess, Dave Ramsey, if you want to throw a name out there. I'm sorry. Paul
I thought I was going to do that.
Paul and I were talking about this earlier, but it's just to set the stage that we're not really coming at you as if we're financial experts.
Gurus. No.
And solve all your financial problems, but I think we can significantly talk. We do have a
podcast for that. There's always a podcast for that at Ministry League.
It's true.
So go to the Ministry League, Ministry League, for that. Download the app and then be able to get all the financial podcasts you want. But this is about the biblical side of things, about marriage and making it stronger.
Yeah.
And there's a podcast for that too.
For everything.
But specifically, this is about the finances this week and what can we do to avoid the problems in marriage.
Yeah.
When it comes to that and trying to do it in a godly way. And when I say do it, manage the money, manage your family, manage your home, your household.
Right.
From a biblical perspective. This show is about 30 minutes for God. So we do ask you to bring in your Bible, bring in Jesus, allow the Lord to be with you as we have our coffee. Some of us have almost finished ours. So we'll see how this goes. But we are excited about this, and it's always good to be with you. Always look forward to this time.
Yeah, and to reiterate a little bit of what he was talking about, our aspect is not about how to solve your financial problems if you have them, not how to fix your financial issues. It's really to talk more about how do you interact with one another? How does your marriage work when you think about the subject matter of finances?
Right.
So really, you could start with, I guess, remember that God comes first.
True. Absolutely.
True in marriage. I mean, it's true in the nature of how you interact with one another, whether it has to do with money or other things.
Right.
Put God at the forefront, and then the others should work out more easily.
Yeah.
Is that a way to put it?
I think in most cases, it is the way to put it. But I think in most cases, when you look at your budget for your family, and it is sad to say, when you flip it upside down, that's kind of the way it should go, because it seems like we put God at the very end.
Yes.
And that is unfortunate. And used to, when we used something called a checkbook, you know, it was like a little half book kind of thing that had numbers and where
Oh,
you
yeah, I remember that
you wrote
thing.
things and gave them to them. You don't do it anymore. But it's like talking about the yellow pages. You know, my daughter doesn't know what that is. But anyway, checkbook is, you know, you look and see where you spend most of your money. You almost say, well, that's where my heart is. You know, your heart is where your money
Okay.
goes. You know, so obviously Walmart, you know, things like that. But the point we're trying to make here is it's about setting priorities.
Right.
And perfect priorities begin with God in setting up what we're going to give to Him before we do anything else. And so I think that's definitely something that is worth talking about, and that's what this show is about today. Who's got the money? Who's going to take care of it?
Yeah.
Who's going to make it? Who's going to spend it? Where does it go? And where did it? I mean, let's just start right here. We wouldn't have any of it without God.
Mm-hmm.
We are managers and stewards of God's stuff.
That's right.
And so that's kind of where we start here this morning with it.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things we could go into. I mean, we could go into the idea of responsibility, faithfulness,
right?
Your stewardship of the things that you have, and that's understanding that God gave them to you, but understanding that just being a good steward of the things you have makes your life better in general, whether you bring God into that picture or not. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that don't have a godly approach to life, but they can still recognize the value of being a good steward of the things they have and how that makes them financially more responsible.
Right.
I'll flip this around. I remember somebody saying to me, and I don't remember the entire context, but it was like a car with some challenges, like that interior lining's falling down, and you know, different things are going on. They're like, oh, I feel so bad for them because they probably just don't have the money to fix it. Somebody said that to me, and I said, it might be that you flip the script on that and say the reason it's that way is because of how they treat it and how they go about their life, and you might find that there's a lot of things in their lives that are that way,
and also what they deem to be the most important in their life.
Yeah,
they may be that. Some people, their car is their life.
Oh, that's true.
Absolutely.
True yeah.
Some people could care less. It's just something that gets me that one to two.
Yeah.
And you put little push pins in it to keep it from falling, which I've seen that before, which is kind of sad.
But anything ignored dies.
Yeah. Yeah.
You leave a house sitting there and you don't go in it, don't attend to it, the earth is going to take it back.
That's true.
Cars the same way. Marriage is the same way.
Yep.
If you leave it to its own devices and you don't put any effort into it, it's going to die.
Yeah.
And finances are the same way. If you don't put any thought into it, you don't put any meaningful decision making into it,
right?
Your financial house is going to die.
So do maintenance.
Do maintenance.
Do maintenance on your house, on your car, but especially on your marriage and your relationship to God.
Yeah, and
keep that going.
And we've talked about kind of interweaving this idea of making the marriage stronger, and kind of the other side of it is not allowing you to get to a point where you feel like the only answer is to be apart. This is one of those places, and probably the key place is finances.
Right.
When you're dealing with this kind of stuff. One of the verses Paul has in some of his notes for his work with couples is Proverbs 21:5. And Proverbs 21:5 says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. This is in the English Standard Version. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Poor decision-making, poor planning, no thoughtfulness. You know, maybe we should step back, because you and I had a conversation about whose money is it?
Yes.
Anyway.
That's right.
We said early on in the podcast, God comes first.
That's right.
But when you get to the couple part of it and you're married, it's not his money and her money.
Right.
It's
theirs.
It's theirs. It's ours.
His and then theirs.
You're right. It's ours. God gives it to us, but as a married couple, we are one flesh.
That's right.
We are
Leave and cleave.
We are a singular entity that is the steward of the money that comes into that household.
100%.
I fundamentally, absolutely, unequivocally, can I use any more words here?
I think you covered it.
Believe that God does not intend for you to operate as two separate financial houses.
That's not how marriage works.
That is not how marriage works.
No.
And that is not what God intends through the concept of you become one flesh.
Yeah.
You become one entity. I know plenty of people that operate that way.
Me too.
But at the end of the day, I just don't think that's in your best financial interest with God in mind.
But let's qualify what exactly we're talking about here, because there's a few ways of doing that. What we are talking about is before you're married, your significant other, before you marry, they have a checking account and you have a checking account. You have a debit card, they have a debit card, and it goes to two separate locations. The point we're trying to make is when you become married, you merge those together, just like you do every other part of your life. You bring it together. Now, if you have one account and you say, okay, we're going to have a separate account for spending of this, and you can spend on this and here, that's different.
Right.
Okay. That's something you've managed together.
You planned and
organized properly where money goes. That's okay. And you mentioned Dave Ramsey earlier. I'm a big pusher and promoter of the financial piece and of the things that Dave Ramsey does. And I think there's some things there that is beneficial. Do I follow every single one of them? No, I probably should. But what I'm saying here is in that is what's called the envelope system. You're not going to carry cash wherever you go. Separate it out, whether it's a physical envelope system or you allocate it in your accounts where you know where it is.
Right.
That's getting a little technical, but we want to put it in certain places where you know and it's accounted for, especially when it comes to the budget, where number one is God, and then groceries, mortgage, payments, things like that. So
yeah, it's absolutely true. Not every household is going to operate with this need to be as
correct
specific.
Right.
But if you evaluate yourself and in the planning stages, you understand who you are as a family unit, right, or individually, or the combination of, this may become more important than in other situations for other people. Jesus, as recorded by Luke, Jesus said in Luke chapter 14, verse 28, "For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the costs, whether he has enough to complete it?" This is the envelope system. This is the making sure you measure out. If you need to, if that's your situation, you need to be very careful with it. It's important to do that. And Jesus even specifically speaks to that principle.
Right. Now, there's two sides of the count the cost you understand here. One is literally what you're looking at as far as money goes and setting things aside. The other count the cost is a Great Commission thing. Is in life, in spiritual life, we need to count the cost of what am I dealing with on an earthly realm that I'm okay with doing away with because of what's going to happen to me if I do right in an eternal realm. Count the cost of Jesus.
Right.
And I don't mean to offer the invitation in a minute, but it literally is two ways of looking at it. You know,
we do that.
We do that
all the time.
Always open.
It's
always
open.
here.
That's right.
It's a podcast. We'll do whatever you need to do.
That's right.
To find the Lord. But yeah, count the costs in a financial way, but also in a spiritual way, in giving yourself. Now we talked about being a steward of God's money. Back in the old medieval days, there was a steward of the castle. And the steward was responsible for all the things that happened in the castle. They were responsible for the workers inside, making the food, cleaning the house, and even to the gardeners and the horse barn, making sure everyone did their thing, managing it properly. And that's the same for us. It's like a steward on a boat. A steward is a servant on the boat that makes sure that everything is done and put in the right place and is presented well. That's what we're doing. We're making sure that we put things in the right place and that we're managing the things that God has given to us in the right way. So if God gives us all this, why in the world wouldn't he be number one?
So in a marriage, who does that?
The one that knows how to manage the money the best. I mean, that's the answer. I mean, let's face it. Some people want to work and make that money. And some people want to manage.
Yep.
Let's find out who that manager is. Let's find out who is organized enough to do that.
Yep.
I'll be completely honest. There's a lot of things I do in my life that's very organized. A lot of things. A lot of people are laughing right now. They're thinking, you think, Paul? But to be honest with you, Stephanie is our manager of the things for our family at home, mostly because I'm involved in so many other things. It helps out. She's good at it, and she's actually great at it.
Yeah.
And so understand the strengths, and this is where we get to the marriage part.
That's
Let's
exactly
understand
right.
the marriage, the strengths and the weaknesses of the husband and the wife, and utilize the strengths.
Yeah.
And support the weaknesses.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this, but you hit it spot on.
That's
because
good.
that's exactly what I was getting
Good.
at. Is that
Look at that.
we
Two
need
minds.
we need to work together
Mhm.
and understand our strengths and weaknesses as
Mhm.
individuals when we work together for the marriage.
Yeah.
And Charlotte and I have a little bit different process in that she brings some strength to the financial game that I don't,
Mhm.
and I bring some that she doesn't.
Okay.
But the blend of the two makes it
Mhm.
work really, really good.
Good.
I'm much more impulsive.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm much more likely to be the guy that goes in
Yeah.
and wants to spend money.
Yeah.
And she's a little bit more reserved in that regard.
Hmm.
But generally speaking, I mean, this is just our personal situation. So everybody's is different.
Actually, it's ours too.
But when it comes to kind of
Yeah.
keeping up with money stuff and we don't do budgets as strictly as others do, but
Mhm.
that kind of becomes more my thing.
Right.
But we have to put those two pieces together
Mhm.
because even if I know a couple that she's the one that rigorously keeps up with it because she says, as she describes it, if he sees money in the checking account, he thinks that's money they can spend.
Mm. Mm.
And it's just one of those things in life where you have that's the beauty of the marriage relationship when you have that checks and balance on each other and you're
Right.
doing it in harmony, not in contradiction to each other.
Well, that goes back to that organization too.
Right.
That virtual
Yeah.
envelope system is knowing what goes where and putting it in place so that we don't use it or it,
Yeah.
gets wasted.
It's a very interesting topic because you get into all sorts of things that, and it, your age as you're listening to this could be all along the spectrum, right?
Right.
But when you're young, how did you learn about money? What were you taught?
Yeah.
What are your current views
How did your
on
parents do it?
spending and saving?
Yeah.
Those kinds of
Sure.
things. And people can preach at you all the time when you're 25 years old about save.
True.
But
And
your
you should.
perspective on that may be different based on
Yeah.
how your parents raised you, what
Mhm.
they taught you about money, how you view it yourself. But at 25, it's a time to listen to people that are 55 or 60 years old that have experienced what can happen, good or bad, along that path.
Right.
But if you're listening to this podcast and you're my age, there's still things to be learned.
Mhm. Always.
I mean, we still have the opportunity to go, I'm not sure this is the best way God would, for my relationship with God, I'm not sure this is the best way
Mhm.
to handle this situation.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. We look at Zillow sometimes for
Hmm.
houses and we go, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have that? Or what if
We
we
do that
moved
all the
over?
time.
What if we moved over there?
Yeah.
And then you just look at it from, this is just a house thing, but you just
Mhm.
look at it from a realistic point of view and go, nope, because that ain't going to work out.
Yeah.
We're going to end up spending a whole lot of money
Mhm.
to do that just to have something we want in this life. So
Right.
it's always part of the balance, right?
I think a lot of it does come down to what your parents did.
Yeah.
Not that they clued you in on what they did, but you make observations and you see.
You can see it.
Yeah, you see who's spending it and who's saving it and who's making it and what you do. And really, let's fix this real quick. It doesn't matter who's making it. It's family money. You bring it together. If a husband is working and the wife, the mom is working from home,
Just
then
putting up
she's
with
working
those
just as
kids.
hard as anybody else is. She's got that PhD on the wall. She's putting the work in. So any money coming in, that's for the family. Don't ever. And this is probably part of the problem is someone say, well, I'm working here and I'm doing this. Never do that. Never compare apples to apples.
Right.
They're not the same.
No.
Okay. Because dad, and sometimes you don't want to be at the house.
Nope.
All right. And sometimes, and every situation is different. The wife may have this incredible job and dad is raising the kids. I mean, every family is different, and we're not here to say, well, how it should look. We are here to say that every, Christ is head of the church, just as in Ephesians 5, we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
As husband is head of the family. We see that, we know that, but it becomes a 50-50 plan when it comes to what you bring in, what out goes, what you save. This is a commitment you're making to each other. So don't forget, you may have little ones, you may have other people in your life that will benefit from the life you've lived today. So save and prepare for tomorrow. And that's what we should be doing.
And we certainly should recognize that there are maybe times in your life, times in our lives where things get askew.
Yeah.
They get a little out of whack from a financial point of view. Things come up. Something hits you unexpected. It's not to say that pre-planning avoids all of those situations, but when those situations happen, it becomes the same basic process. God first, you as a couple together solving the problem and figuring out a way through it.
Right.
Sometimes that means sacrifice.
It does.
You can't have things you want in lieu of things that absolutely have to be had
Right.
for the family situation. And that's really, really to me, that's the whole crux of the financial thing, is to make sure you have your spiritual focus correct. God first, do the things the way God wants you to do them, and focus on the things God wants you to focus on, including your marriage relationship. And then the rest of it, you'll kind of work through together.
And on that marriage relationship, please always be open and honest with each other when it comes to where the money's going and what you're spending, what you're doing, your goals, especially before marriage. Decide what that is. Decide how you want to save, how you want to give, and what you're going to spend on. Talk about those things. Anybody in I would say from the Christian standpoint of getting married has gone through any kind of a step-by-step premarital counseling kind of thing. But if for some reason you didn't and you want a refresher, you can call either of us. We'd love to sit down with you and help you, encourage you in whatever way we can.
Yeah.
And if it's something we can't handle, we'll find somebody that will. And that's what we're all about. But also one other thing I want to mention here, build a sample monthly budget, regardless of where you are in your marriage. Start now, start fresh, and just kind of look at where it's going, where things are going, so that communication with one another does matter. Finances is one of the leading reasons for divorce. Okay. The way to stop that from happening is if the communication is not happening now, it needs to begin.
Yeah.
It needs to begin quickly.
It is so true. If you sit down with a financial planner that's going to be in your life from a monetary point of view, because they don't come free, but
no.
If you sit down with them, or even if you listen to some of the free materials like a Dave Ramsey offers, this is one of the things they're going to tell you: detailed budget.
Right.
Where does the money go? Where is it intended to go? How are you handling it? Yeah, there's no question about it that's a very important piece of the puzzle. So, as we close, remember God first, but as a couple, you're together in this with a God view, and the finances will come together the way they should if you focus on the right things together.
And when you have that discussion, make sure and have that discussion together over the Bible and a hot cup of coffee.
A hot cup of coffee.
I had to do it.
You had to.
Thank y'all for being with us.
We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God. For Les Sandifer, I'm Paul Sperlin. This has been the show. A big thank you to our sponsor, Piedmont Road Church of Christ. Find them at lifeinchrist.com. Also, ministryleague.com.
Find all the resources, the psalm book, and everything you need there, and all the podcasts right there at ministryleague.com, and also Citadel Bible Institute at citadelbible.net. Cast your nets to learn how to preach, teach, connect, and do ministry. We hope that you will tune in next week for another installment of Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to being with you over that next cup of coffee.